Hello YouTube, this is the seventh video in the video series, and in this video we are going to talk about the browser rendering and how the page gets printed on your web browser. Okay, so in the previous video, or till the previous video, we have seen how the packet travels till your system and how you make requests to the web server and all of that, and finally you get a HTML web page as a response. Okay, so we are going to move forward with that, and I will show you how that gets rendered and printed on your web browser today in this video. So let's quickly move on to the demo. So on a high level, the browser's main functionality is to request for a resource and to bring it to you and to clearly and cleanly display it on the browser screen. Okay, so just a few high level steps here which we will dig into deeper during this particular video. So the first thing that happens is, as soon as you get the HTML file, you start to parse it. The browser parses it and creates something called as a DOM tree. DOM here refers to document object model tree. Okay, and then once the tree is created, you start creating a render tree, and this render tree's layout is defined, and then it is finally printed on your browser screen. Okay, so this is a very high level overview. Let me start off by showing you let me start off by telling you that these are the render engines which are used by the popular web browsers. For example, your Internet Explorer uses something called as Trident. Firefox uses Gecko, Safari uses WebKit, Chrome uses Blink, which is a fork of WebKit. This is just for your information. Okay, here, as you can see, I'm kind of using my browser as a text editor here, and there's a small hack that I'm using. So I basically tell the data is text/HTML, and I give HTML content editable here. Okay, so I'm able to edit on the screen. Okay, so let's assume this is the HTML that we received in the HTTP request. Okay, as a response, this is the HTML that we received. Okay, this is just a sample HTML. Okay, so the first step would be to parse this and to create a DOM tree. Okay, so if you notice, this is how it looks behind the scene. You have the root element, which is HTML. Okay, then this HTML gets closed here, then you have head, and then you have a body under HTML, right? So under HTML you have head and you have body. So it's basically just like any other tree, which grows from root till the leaf nodes. Okay, and in head you have a element called title. If you notice here, inside head you have a element called title, and the text is my title. Okay, similarly in the body you have a tag with href, which is blank, which is an attribute, and you have the text, which is my link, and similarly you have another element h1 with the text my header. Okay, which clearly maps to how you have defined it in your HTML. Now HTML is not a really strict language, so it does not really punish you for not closing any of these brackets. Okay, so that's the reason the tree doesn't really have a starting and an ending thing. It just looks for the starting tag, and then it kind of builds the tree forward. So that's about this DOM, how the document object model tree is created. Okay, now let me take you through a very high level overview. So if you look at this image that I have, this is specific to WebKit rendering engine, but it is kind of common to Gecko as well. Okay, it is very similar. So the first step is to get HTML, and you also get style sheets or the CSS, and basically you parse HTML and you create a DOM tree. Similarly, you parse the CSS. I am not kind of showing this because it is very similar to HTML. You just construct another tree with all the tags and all the rules that you apply to that particular tag. Okay, so you have a CSS parser, and then you create style rules, something called as style rules. Okay, and you combine the DOM tree along with style rules to create a render tree. Okay, so basically in a render tree, what happens is you have all of these blocks, just like how I showed you in the DOM tree, but along with these tags you also have properties. Like, let's say I plan to color my head with a red background color or something, so you have that attached to this particular node. Okay, so that's what I mean by a render tree. And once the render tree is created, the browser starts figuring out the width of each of the element, the height of the element, the coordinates where it has to be placed on the screen, and then it paints it on the display. Okay, so after it paints the image or the web page on the screen, there is also another step which happens wherein it runs all the scripts. For example, your JavaScript that you've written, it runs those scripts and then you're allowed to interact with the web page. Okay, and that is finally present on your display, which is your monitor or the screen that you're using. Now there is one problem that I would like to discuss with you. So let's say there is a big HTML website that you're trying to access. Okay, so let's assume the HTML page has like thousands of lines of code in it. So it cannot really be sent within one HTTP packet, right? So it has to be split into multiple parts and it has to be sent slowly in each of the HTTP packets or HTTPS packets. So now what happens is the client cannot really wait for all the HTML to arrive, for all the CSS sheets to arrive, and then render it and then be displayed on the web on your browser. So your browser very intelligently, what it starts doing is as soon as it starts getting chunks of HTML and CSS, it applies those properties to the DOM tree and it starts rendering it on your screen. So that's the reason sometimes you see the text first and then you suddenly see your background color which appears and all of that while the page is still loading. So this is a very interesting solution that your browser takes when there are huge HTML pages or huge CSS style sheets. So this was a really short video that I made for browser rendering. I hope you liked the video. So this is like the last video in the video series. I really hope you enjoyed the entire video series and you've been with me from the first video till the 7th video. What I'm planning to do is I'm going to make one last video. Maybe I'll put it up next week and then that will cover basically all the concepts from the first video till the 7th video. I'm kind of going to revise through all the concepts and I'm going to keep it as short as possible. So that you can kind of quickly revise through all of these concepts before you actually go for an interview or anything of that sort. So I'm also looking at a few more topics and your suggestions are always welcome for the next set of videos. I hope you had fun watching these videos. Thank you and please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.